Good afternoon, Westwood, and welcome to the Wolverine Report, episode 12. Evan Cardimino, Charlotte Lynch, Marie Fiscaldo, and I'm Morgan Donahue. Folks, we have a terrific guest today, someone who's been part of the Westwood school systems for 33 years. He is the leader of your Westwood Athletics, Athletic Director Matt Gillis. Matt, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. 33 years. How has that felt? Has it felt like a blink of the eye, or has it felt, like 33 years?
Both. It really has been both. I student taught here 35 years ago.
Wow.
And then when I finished up my student teaching, I substituted for a year, worked the extended day. So I've been here since I've been like 22 years old.
No kidding. So the student teaching was before you ended up getting hired and working.
Correct.
Who were you working with during that process?
I was placed at the Thurston Middle School with Russ Downs.
Yeah.
He was my cooperating practitioner.
Legend.
And he was absolutely great to work with.
Yeah.
I was so lucky to be able to learn how to teach there.
Yeah.
And also work with Liz Rice.
Liz Rice is a legend too. By the time I was at the middle school, she was transitioning into like IT, computer.
Yep.
But I've heard so many legendary stories about her as a phys ed teacher.
Oh yeah.
Kathy Delaney Smith had mentioned her name. They had taught together.
Yeah.
But that's a blast from the past right there.
I was so blessed to be able to to learn this craft as teaching. With the two of them.
Absolutely.
So.
No two better individuals, to learn from.
Yep.
For the folks that aren't familiar with a guy like Russ Downs, they have the baseball field named after him, and rightfully so. Not only just an amazing person in the Westwood community, also amazing American. He fought in the Korean War. He saved a lot of lives.
He did.
What can you say about him, the person, to just get people who might not be familiar with him, up to speed on, how amazing a person he was?
Sure. Russ was someone that was just very endearing.
Yeah.
And that, coming into a middle school to teach, phys ed, at the time was pretty scary.
Yeah.
And he just had such a nice way about himself to welcome me in and made me feel comfortable and gave me the opportunity to be able to learn how to teach, make the mistakes and go over and, we're able to process what was going on. But I was just absolutely amazed to watch him and his interactions with the students. Mm-hmm. It was just amazing to see someone be able to make the connections with the kids. They would come running into gym and screaming, leaving because they didn't want to go. And it was, to me, that was just something really nice to see because he was able to create an environment where you absolutely wanted to be there every single time you had a chance.
Yeah.
So that was something that, I tried to emulate along my way, is that, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about in education. And I wanted to have it where I try to create an environment where the students really wanted to be in that class.
It definitely was. I think you kept it loose. I remember you'd get the roll call and then you'd say Patriots rule, and I think that meant like you get up and start running around the court. So it was fun. I also remember in the locker room you guys always kept it loose. It was a place in between classes you'd come say hello, talk to yourself, Coach Whalen. You always had sports radio on, so you always knew what was the latest sports talk. And that was always a fun environment, and that's cool. I mean, so ultimately. You student taught at Westwood, and then you became full time at Westwood. What was that process like? Who do you remember interviewing with, and ultimately, how did you say? What made you say yes?
So, when Russ put into retirement, and that position was going to be opening, there was also another position at the elementary level that opened up for phys ed, and I ended up applying for both of them at the time, and they did the interview process for the elementary job first. Yeah. And I have an uncle, Arthur Gertie, who was a principal at the Donahue School.
Yeah.
He worked long-time educator in Westwood. So I did a lot of my prep work with him about understanding elementary because all my experience was middle school and high school. Yeah. And so I went in and I interviewed for the elementary job. Joe Guerin was the department head at the time, so he was leading the interviews. I think Brian Hart, who was an English teacher, was also in on the interviews because I think they were going to keep the same committee for both positions. And those are two that I just remember. And I just interviewed for the elementary job, and then I didn't hear anything That was probably in June, and I didn't hear anything.
You're like, oh, yes, they're going with
guess
someone
I
else.
did go in another direction. And then I got a call just saying, hey, Matt, we want to offer you the middle school phys ed position. And I was just absolutely ecstatic. And I'm going through some stuff now, and I accepted my contract on August 11th, 1992.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
Were there any, at your time at the middle school, were there any faculty members that really helped you along the way and people that really you enjoyed working with that you'd like to give a quick shout out to?
Oh my God, there's so many. Rich Bernazzani is absolutely hands down, someone that took me under his wing. I had really, really good mentors at the middle school. Yeah. And at the time, class size was about 110 kids, maybe 105. Yeah. So there was only 300 and maybe 330 students in the building. Yeah. So in my role as a phys, I knew every single kid, but Rich Bernazzani was one. Paul Carroll, he was a science teacher. Yeah. He was another one.
Legend.
Brian Hart, Gene Tinnery, who ran the WASC.
Yes.
Which there was so many trips.
I thought you were,
took
did you
over.
take over? Yeah.
So Rich and I ended up taking over after Gene Tinnery retired. Yeah. And then there was Donna Santa Barbara, and, Sue Costanza, Carol Abel. Yeah. There was so many in, our arts group teachers that it really made an enjoyable work environment. And I loved it. I was there for 14 years, and it was great.
They were old school, kind of teachers.
Yeah.
Rich Bernazzani, so authentic. He was unapologetically himself, but everyone loved it. Yeah. And he was so good at what he did. You have this guy, good personality, and he's the type of guy you'd want to have, a beer with. And he's teaching you math. He's making math interesting, with this kind of personality. And then all the other teachers, they kept us in line. They did a really good job of keeping us all honest and making it fun,
So one thing, Maureen Zoll was also the principal. Yes. And she was hired the same year that myself and Debbie Peterson were hired. And I remember because I student taught there and I knew so many of the teachers, I became very comfortable really early. Yeah. So I remember after one faculty meeting, and she calls me over to the office, and I was in my probably my second year, maybe early on in my third year. And at that time it was, after 3 years, then tenure came in. Yep. And she just kind of gave me, Matt, watching in the faculty meetings, I'm just not sure if this is something that's going to work out, And she goes, I just don't appreciate how you kind of behave in there sometimes, because it'd be, very talkative and all that. Yeah. And I took that in, and I was like, that will never be a question again.
Yeah, yeah.
And every faculty meeting since, I sit off by myself. I'm like, I needed to let her know I heard your message loud and clear. And it was probably the best advice that I took without actually saying, I want to give you some advice. And it was, you need to behave a certain way to make sure that you are representing yourself the way that you should. And I just really took it in.
Well, as a leader, she probably saw that, you have leadership qualities. And she's like, to be, kind of, a serious leader, you have to be quiet in these meetings, because at some point you'll be leading these meetings,
Exactly. Exactly.
But I think that's the truest form of respect, is when someone says something like that to you, knowing that they're covering your blind spots, and they're not. It's just constructive criticism, but also the awareness to take it and not take it personally, and to take the positive out of it. It's like a really good sign, and to have those resources or those people around you are terrific, people.
Yeah. Again, the mentors that I had were invaluable for my success that I've had.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a fun, it was just 3 years of the middle school. It's 6th, 7th, and 8th. And the middle school, obviously right down the street from the high school, but it was very fun. The teachers made it very fun. It's a fun time in your life when you're kind of, you're really, the sports are really picking up. You're just on the doorstep of high school, and you're really starting to develop, being competitive about anything. And then they kept it fun with one thing I want to bring up is I thought you got robbed in the 1999 school talent show. I don't know if you remember the teachers doing If I Had $1 Million.
Absolutely.
And I think it was you, Bernazzani. I don't know if Wales got it. Frankenfield,
Andy Frankenfield.
And these guys went up.
I think Dick Burke as well.
Yes. So typically the talent show is students. And, we had singers. We had everyone doing everything. We had people doing handstands, backflips. Yep. And then all of a sudden the music hits. And I think these guys got the contacts, so they had like, knew how to shut the lights off too, get a little flicker going, a little pizzazz. And, If I Had $1 Million song came on, and the teachers walking up, everyone knew their part. They're playing the air guitars. And it was, what a memory. I thought it should have won. I think
we
you got
were in
robbed.
dresses.
Yeah, I think you were
And we
dressed.
had one of those little red tyke cars that we put $1 million
Yes.
sign on.
Yeah. I mean, was there time that went into that, or was it thrown together, 5 minutes before? I'd have to imagine it was.
Probably was brought up maybe a week before, like, hey, Rich was like, hey, I got an idea, what if we do something like this? And at the time we were like, why wouldn't we?
Yeah.
It's like, that was just the type of camaraderie we had where it's like, oh, this is going to be, really silly.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So.
And that's just kind of what the environment was like up there. It was fun. Learning was taken seriously. People were kept in line, and ultimately we were developing, all of us students to become ready for high school, in those academics. And you yourself, you were obviously a teacher. You got involved in some other activities along the way. One being you oversaw the summer school program.
Yep.
I know because I was in it. And I go, Coach, what are you doing? He's like, Morgan, I figured you'd be here. Was that something that you wanted to take on some more responsibility at that time? And, did you know then that you wanted to kind of see what potential options were out there for your future?
So in my time at the middle school, as was going along, I think I just gravitated towards leadership roles because I was the team leader for the arts department, and I did that for a few years. And then, I just wanted to something a little bit more in my professional career. Mm-hmm. Went back to school, went down to Bridgewater, I got my master's degree in educational leadership because my dream job was to be the assistant principal at the middle school, is what I thought that it was. Yeah. So I figured the best way for me to be able to start taking on roles was the summer program opened up. I applied for it and I got it, and I ended up doing the Westwood summer programs, I think for about 4 years. Yeah. I did it. And then when I finished up in Westwood, my kids were going to St. Catherine's. Yeah. And I ended up bringing that program to St. Catherine's at the time. But awesome. It was just a way for me to experience something other than being a phys ed teacher in a leadership role, because if I wanted to be an assistant principal, I needed to experience what it was like in those roles. Mm-hmm. So, I look back at how the computers weren't like the thing that they are now when it comes to scheduling, and organizing, like the logistics. My wife and I would sit on our kitchen floor with every kid's name and like blocks of time and all the classes, and like, okay, Morgan can go in that one A block, he can go there B block and there C block, and then it just became a big shuffling around game.
But you took it to the next level. You're like, all right, we can't have Morgan and Danny McGinnis together. So he's going to be here. We're going to...
Knowing the players helps.
Yes.
Knowing the players helps.
Very much.
But again, like at that time, like it was, to go out and try something different. So like the classes that we tried to bring in there, again, it's like, what would someone have fun learning to do? And then, be able to have that involved. So that was a really big learning curve for me early on in my career of what my future aspirations might be.
How has working in the field of education evolved from, you mentioned you started 33 years ago. How has it evolved then from then to today? And is there anything that's changed that's been for the positive for you and maybe for the negative as well?
I'm going to go, there's been a lot of change. And, a common thing, we'll talk about the pendulum. And the pendulum will swing one way or another. I would say parent involvement definitely has increased over time. I think the level of expectation has increased over time. Some of the standard things is like a sixth grader is a sixth grader. Mm-hmm. A high school senior is a high school senior. I haven't really seen that many changes kind of like in that role. But it's everything else around it that's changed. Again, technology is, that's in itself is a game changer. The world's experienced some crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. But, I was in the building on September 11th. in the building at that time, and that was, really weird,
Yeah.
experiencing, through COVID. And, so like a lot of the world changes and societal changes are now more involved, I'd say, in schools. So that's, again, it's good and bad. It all depends on how you go about kind of rolling with the punches.
Yeah.
I think as long as you keep the focus on how do I go about helping the students learn, and keeping education in the forefront of what goes on, I think that then just becomes the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kathy Delaney Smith made a great point. She said, the parents don't know about what's going on here, so like leave it to what we're working on, something special here. They're going to chime in and all that. And she made a good point there. And she was kind of before her times,
Yep.
With that. And I think Westwood, I call it the lacrosse factor. When you have 20 years of girls going to the Division I level, everyone's going to start expecting my girl, we live in Westwood, she's got a stick in her hands, she's going D1.
Yeah,
It's just not the process. So there's a hyper focus on that. And I think, there's a lot of, pressure of kids wanting to, be the next Caroline Nozzolillo, Ava Connaughton, to be able to go on to that next level. And it's a unique town.
It is,
I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
We talked about the summer school. You also took over leadership of the World Organization Study Club, WOSC. I think you did a fantastic job with that. It's not an easy job. Essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, the program was basically to get the kids together after school, learn about different topics. We had Russ Downs on to talk about his time in the Korean War. Mike Niles came in, talked about Vietnam. These are very sobering topics to take in, but very important topics to understand how different life is now and how appreciative we are for people like them, especially people in town. You brought in Richie Hebner. We heard about him in his career, which is amazing. Local kid going to play in the World Series at 18 years old, 19 years old. And who was his teammates? He's got Roberto Clemente, Manny Sanguian, Bill Mazeroski.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are Hall of Famers, and get this
unbelievable.
local kid.
Yep.
It was an amazing program, and the culmination of this program led to a trip to New York. So you were responsible for, a class of 120 kids, getting them on the bus, getting them permission slips signed, all the, logistics and whatnot. And we would go to New York City. Then we went to...
We'd go to the Liberty Island.
Yes, Liberty Island. And of course, everyone was trying to sell us stuff.
Yep.
And you're like, no, don't buy anything here. Because, of course, people did. They buy a necklace and it started turning green after 5 minutes, and
their watch already was broken.
Watch is already broken.
Yeah.
But then ultimately, a sobering experience is we went to the top of the World Trade Center in June of 2001. So we were at the top with our class, and we were probably there for, I feel like, an hour and a half. And it was one of the most amazing experiences with our class, 8th grade class, about to go to high school. We're running around. It's one of the best views you'll ever see of the city. I remember you made a unique comment when we were walking up to it. You said both of the buildings are the same size. They looked different when you were next to them. One looked bigger than the other, and ultimately we get up to the top. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's right.
How about
it's the same
that?
size.
Yeah.
But it really, September 11th felt different. Having been there, just having meeting the people, who worked there, the elevator. What was that experience like for you after such a really horrible day?
It was surreal is really what it was, because every once in a while we try and get out on the observatory deck, and I think we were able to go outside that year.
Yeah.
And that was like the first time in years we're actually able to go outside, and I was just so happy to be able to do it because when you can't, and then to be there and watch that unfold, and to just all of a sudden go, oh my God, I couldn't imagine if we were there with the students, and that's like, I'm with my family at the time, but like I go there and it's just amazed that thank God we weren't, because what that would be like would have been horrific, but grateful for everything along the way. I'm trying to one of the things that we also did after we do Liberty and then Ellis Island, and then because we did 2 days in New York,
We West Point, I think,
and then we went to West Point. But one of the things that when in the after school stuff, they also learned about other countries and other people. And each year we would go to the UN, and do a
Had to wear the
you had to wear the shirt and tie
button-down
and jacket.
tie,
Yep, and they had to do that. And then we'd make a peace prize presentation to a dignitary that we felt was deserving.
Yeah.
So that was also really cool to be able to do something like that. And then we took in a Broadway show.
That's right.
What'd you see?
Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
Beauty and the Beast. But I thought that you did a fantastic job with that. It's not an easy thing to do. It's time away from your family too. To put that together. But certainly, I think it was something that helped shape a leadership role and like going out and doing something difficult. And one question I want to ask you, and we asked this to Paul Lilla, is Paul went out to New York after college. He had worked at the Garden.
Yep.
And he decided to take the risk to go out to New York. And he had the mentality of, what's the worst that can happen? I fail. Okay, I'll be home.
Yep.
What advice would you give to some of the students now, like on taking risks like that, trying new things, even feeling sometimes overwhelmed, I'm sure, with some of those things. But ultimately, there was a lot of positives that came out of it. What advice would you give to students about taking risks and trying new things?
It's a must.
Yeah.
You have to. How else are you going to know?
Yeah.
And I've had students come back and ask me, what's it take to become, an athletic director?
Yeah.
There's so many different paths to be able to get here, but everything that I did put me in a position where I was then ready to be an athletic director. And that's why I think work in the service industry, learn how to deal with people, and survive that. You don't have to make a living, but just understand how that works. I do manual labor, understand whether or not you want to, like I landscaped for years, it's like, love mowing lawns, like doing mulch, don't want to do it for a living. So it's like, so it's just go out and try and take on new roles. Doing the summer program, we would take on a new role, arts team leader, take on a role, the coaching positions that I had. It was all about just trying something new to figure out what is it that I like. It's advice that I give to my kids. I have 2 kids. It's advice I give to them of like, now's the time to go out and do it. My wife and I, when we graduated from Bridgewater, we were both phys ed teachers looking for jobs. And back in 91, 92, there just weren't a lot of jobs. And there was jobs in Alaska. And we actually gave it like a thought, like maybe we could go to Alaska.
Yeah. Summer's back home.
Yeah, it'd be great. But then, it turned out that it didn't go that way. But it was something that was on the radar, which I try to say, I grew up in Norwood. I bought a house in Norwood. I brought, my family's in Norwood. And I'm like, so I haven't really gone out and done outside of stuff like that. But in my professional career, I tried to do a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And that's something, I talk with Michelle Hebner, Brian Whalen, because I got good advice from my mentors. And I'm like, continue on with your education because you don't know where it's going to take you. And then if you can take on a new role, I worked at the middle school for 14, transferred to the high school, worked there for 6 as a wellness teacher. I then have been in this role. This is my 13th year doing this. I was union president for 4 years. It's like all these different things put me in a position to when this position opened up, I had a lot of varied backgrounds, and I think it just helped. So that's my advice is you don't know where it's going to take you. If you don't like it, you move on. If you like it, stay with it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
We also talk a lot about there are a lot of different fields in sports, right? For students, when you're going through it, I remember when I was young, I had dreams of being an NFL player. I thought I was going to replace Tom Brady, and I didn't. I'm here now, but I ultimately found sports video, and that's what brought me here. But there's athletic director, there's doing commentary like Morgan. To any students that are coming through the program, is there any advice you give them about working in the sports field specifically? That is it kind of the same as taking risk? Is there anything different?
I think it's always, anything's going to be a risk. It's there's going to be limited opportunities. Like how many Morgan Donahues do we need, right? One's pretty good, but it's like you got to figure, where am I going to find my niche? Experience it. You take little times where you can go and do it, just to find out, and then see if that's going to take you somewhere. I think it's when you find your passion. Athletics for me just kind of ended up something that I've always been drawn to. The education for me didn't happen till I was in college, to when I realized that I wanted to do that. And then it's just kind of a good fit for the two of them, where, working in a school system, particularly Westwood, that values athletics, and I wanted to be involved. So I'd be able to, my day job was teaching phys ed. My after school job was then coaching. Yeah. It was a great mix, and at the time, early on in the career, when I was middle school teacher, and then I'd see those same kids again when at the high school, was awesome, because you see them at two different stages in their life, and that was really neat. So I like trying answering your question about like advice. It's go out and try, and give it a whirl. You never know what you're gonna end up finding, and in the athletic world, it can be a lot of fun. Watching games, unemotionally watching games is drastically different than when I was
hiding it well.
yeah. As a parent,
Yeah.
And a dad,
Yeah.
I'd watch games a certain way.
Yeah.
As athletic director, I watch differently. As a coach,
You're also
I watch
working
differently.
too, so it's like it's almost like secure. Making sure
Right.
the
work-
den is
Yes,
in
yeah.
check.
Everything's safe. If anything goes wrong,
Yeah.
I know how to respond. But I've loved it. It has been a great career choice for me.
You make a good point. So you coached lacrosse and then you coached golf. Does that perspective of coaching help you understand kind of what your coaches are going through, and some of the challenges they face, and ultimately what it's like a day in the life in their roles?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I coached volleyball. I coached in
I didn't know
Norwood,
that. Wow.
coached volleyball. And then a position opened up in Westwood, the JV position. And I ended up getting the JV position probably like in June. And then by the middle of August, I was the varsity coach, because the varsity coach ended up leaving.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a whirlwind where I'd never been a varsity coach before.
Yeah.
So that was a learning experience of how to go about doing that. I coached the girls lacrosse team. I took over, I think, like the second year as a club.
Yeah.
I did that, and best thing I ever did was stop coaching the girls lacrosse
So that was
team
before Leslie.
And Leslie
Okay.
came in next, and look what she did.
She was
it
a
was
soccer
great.
coach for a little bit,
She
too.
was. Yep,
Yeah.
she was the soccer coach.
That's interesting. So you are the first Westwood girls lacrosse coach ever.
I mean, I have a lot of bad jokes, but like my best bad joke is like, I'm the reason why girls lacrosse, it is what it is, because I
It is.
stopped coaching. Yep. I coached the JV golf team, and then
Yep.
I coached the golf team.
Yeah.
I helped out with baseball.
Yep.
I did that.
Remember that.
And then I also was the varsity boys lacrosse coach.
The baseball was a fun year. Yeah, it was. Heb was helping out a little bit.
Yeah, she'd always do the books.
Downs had like the 1985 jacket
Absolutely.
on.
Yep. The
And
shiny.
he still had a lot to. There's a lot of
Yeah.
value add he could provide, and I still have my handshake with him.
Oh, nice.
Everyone had a handshake with him, a special handshake, and was an awesome guy.
He had to give up punching him in the stomach.
Yes, that was part of it too. It was kind of like the David Ortiz one, Dante Bichette.
Yeah.
Hands up, and then
Yeah.
yeah. Had to make sure I did a couple sit-ups
Yeah.
every now before those ones. So ultimately, going from education at the middle school and the high school led you into interviewing for the AD role. Was that something that was kind of always on your radar? Did it open up and you saw opportunity and said, give it a shot? And how did that kind of unfold?
No,
Yeah.
Being an athletic director was never on my radar. Like assistant principal at the middle school, which position opened up, I applied for it, didn't get it.
Yeah.
And that at the time, Allison Borges is
Yeah.
when she became the assistant principal, and Vic Palladino was the principal.
Yeah.
Then I went to the high school. It opened up at the high school. I applied for that, didn't get it, and I'm like, okay, I tried,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I didn't want to get into the administrative role where I would leave Westwood,
Yeah.
go to another school
Yeah.
system, and then kind of do the dance. Like, I like the stability. That one of the things that was important to me was to just be stable in my position.
Yeah.
I had a young family,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to make sure that I was able to do it. Plus, I loved being in the gym.
You love this town too.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And so then when I was union president, and I did that, and I was able to work with Johnny Antonucci a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a great experience for me, because another one of my mentors was John.
Yeah.
And then this role opened up, and I was like, I don't know, maybe this would be a cool thing to give it a try. And they were trying to decide. This is after Carl Fogel leaving, were they going to go interim for a year, or were they going to hire someone? And they decided to go interim for a year. So I had talked with John about it, and I needed to make sure that they were going to bring in someone that, we really like them, and keep it. Yeah. So I decided to hold off, and they did bring in someone for a year.
Okay.
And then I ended up interviewing for that, and here we are.
Were you involved behind the scenes of just kind of seeing how that process worked during that interim process? Awesome. Yeah, I mean, because that's the smart thing to do.
Yep.
And then ultimately, when you do get in that role, you're still kind of somewhat new. So, like, who were those people, whether it was other ADs, who were some of those people that were really, super helpful early on to kind of get your bearings?
So Pete Richards came in to do it for a year. Yeah. So I'd always just kind of check in with Pete because I was in the gym. Yeah. I'd see him. So I'd just kind of check in, and he was a retired AD from Neshoba Regional.
Okay. So
I just kind of talked with him about the job, and he really kind of gave me some good background about what the position is like, which really helped. Yeah. So he was, off the bat, he was someone that was definitely helpful for me. But like prior to getting the job, I knew Joe Guerin because he was the AD when I was hired. But like other than that, I didn't really know anybody, with it. But my first year when I came when I did get the job, and then meeting the other athletic directors in our league, it's one of the, I can't speak highly enough for him. We would have regular meetings. We meet every 2 weeks out in Medway. And at the time there was 10 schools. And we were just the support group for each other. Mm-hmm. And, I've made some really good friends with, the ADs. Eric Scott in Medfield he's just been a great friend for me. The two of us call each other. We really help each other out. Yeah. I don't know if you remember, I think it was 3 years ago, Westwood is playing Medfield at Medfield in football. Transformer blows up. We moved the game to Westwood for the second half. Yeah. It was seamless.
Did that impact the schedule the following year?
It did not. We were back in Westwood. We joke saying,
we didn't screw up the lights.
We'll play the first half in Westwood and the second half in Medfield. Yeah.
Oh, hey, we had the home field advantage when it mattered most.
Exactly. Yep.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So, but that was, he called me up this spring and said, Matt, we need a field for the boys state championship lacrosse game. Yeah. Can we use Westwood? And we made it work.
He helped you out too for baseball.
Yeah, we went over there and played
Westwood at that field.
At their field.
So that's great.
And that's really what I've found within our league is that, we stress making sure that we take care of each other. Yeah. And, we think that again, we work as a team. Yeah. When our team is functioning well and supporting each other, we just think that then trickles down into our respective programs.
Absolutely. And ultimately too, coming into the role, you have an amazing lady, Martha Lofna. How special is she? Oh my God. She's the mother of a few students that have come through. Andrew, Ryan, who is the oldest.
Yep.
And then the daughter, Mary, who's the lacrosse coach at Medfield, just coming off a state championship.
Yep.
Terrific year. And Sarah.
Yep.
And just an amazing family. They all been involved in athletics, and she's been here helping out. What has she meant to you in your role?
Invaluable.
Yeah.
Paul and I would joke, Martha's the brains of the organization. Yeah.
She's the Dan Ferrari of the Dan Ferrari runs practices and all that, where it allows coaches and allows administration to be able to do their job effectively when the very difficult, she did a terrific job with like the jerseys in that process. It's one of the most difficult processes to get the kids there, get them, to collect them. She makes it seamless. I mean, she's got a whole system.
She does. She's tremendous. Martha's responsible for uniforms.
Yes.
She's like our equipment manager. And then also she does a great job of tracking registration so that when season start, coaches have an accurate information about who's registered, who's cleared, if there's ever, if their physical is going to expire, making sure that we keep student athletes eligible.
It's huge.
She does that. She also keeps track of seasonal awards, who gets letters, who gets pins, and things like that. So those things there are absolutely invaluable to making sure that an athletic program, just runs well. Mm-hmm. So she has been the best thing there. I remember she came up to me because I've known her for years because I had the kids at the middle school, and she's like, hey, do you know Kyle Fogel? I just want to see about volunteering in the athletic program. I'm like, oh, yeah, here it is. So I kind of, introduced them, and she hasn't left.
Yeah.
And then, I come in, and it was great because she was like, okay, this is already all set.
Yeah.
We're using this system. We're using this thing called Our School for scheduling. The bus lists are all, all these things are all set, and here's how you do this, and here's how you do that. And, again, the transition that she helped with me coming into the job, and then, to just go through, we're a great team.
Yeah.
And she really is a tremendous person to work with. She's just great.
Great sense of humor,
Oh,
too.
she's,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. And she also coaches.
Yeah, tennis.
She coaches
She's
the
a
tennis team.
That's
She coached the swim team.
Yeah.
She just looks at it. It's like, I'm here to help. Well, what do we need to get done? And let's do it.
Westwood is a better place because of Martha Loeffner.
Without a
No
doubt.
question about it.
Yep.
Now that we're about 3 or so weeks into the TBL season, one of the questions I have is kind of, what's it been like for you working with your fellow athletic directors in the TBL? Do you guys have sort of set meetings where you meet every so often? And what's kind of been that process working with the other teams in the TBL been like?
Yes, we have. We typically set our schedule where we meet every other Thursday. We try and meet at least twice a month, and this will just figure out like any type of league business, what our schedules are, any issues that come up. We go about hiring assigners who then assign all the officials for all of our games. So we, are coordinating with them and making sure that that stays in place. It could be dealing with renting of venues, indoor track, swim, outdoor track, cross country. Anytime we need to rent a facility, we have somebody that, like one of the athletic directors is their liaison, and they're going about coordinating and making sure that those are all set, and then all like future planning for what's happening. So, we have an agenda that we kind of try and, come up with prior to our meetings to make sure that we stay on task of, these are the hot topics that we need to deal with.
And then in the summer, are you doing sort of meetings like that as well throughout the summer to plan further in advance? Or is that more just, are they kind of a little more sporadic and they're kind of more overarching meetings over the future of the TBL?
It all depends on the AD's contract. So like most of the ADs are running on a school schedule as well. We do work in the summer, but we typically don't meet in the summer. We'll finish up in June, and then we pick up again in August.
Okay. Interesting. Every now and then there's kind of changes to different sports, sports, and also there's some league changes. Overtime was added for hockey, which is great. You get 5 minutes. If it's tied up, you get that opportunity to get the win. There's some other changes that come up every now and then. Are there any notable ones that have been introduced this year, whether it's league or either by the league or the MIAA?
I think the biggest change that we've made is we now all follow the NFHS rules, which is the National Federation of High School Sports. Okay. And where football used to go by NCAA, it would be following along with other type of sports rules, but now we are all following along with the NFHS rules.
Interesting, yeah, because I'm at the football game the other night, and they're still doing kickoffs, like full kickoffs.
Yep.
So, I don't know if college is doing it yet, but you obviously know there's a different, they're going by certain rules,
yep.
And following those rules.
Yep.
But it's always interesting because each year there's something different, whether it's even equipment stuff. Sometimes there's equipment that's added that are requirements,
yep.
So it's always good to know, because I'll be watching a game and we'll be doing play-by-play. Ref blows the whistle. I go, I have no clue what was just called, and it's also a learning experience.
Yeah.
Like when I first learned what warding was in lacrosse,
right.
I'm like, what, you can't do that. It seems like the natural thing to do when someone's whacking you with a
for all those
stick.
Football players. It's a natural thing to do. Yep. Yeah.
And obviously in those meetings with the ADs, there's probably also talks about there's still sports at certain schools that just aren't available yet. Gymnastics isn't at every school. This past season, the boys volleyball had a club team. And I think the goal and aspirations of that are to ultimately become a varsity program. Is it on track for that? If so, kind of what does that timeline look like? That'd be a really interesting sport to add to our list of sports.
I'll go. It's going to be a varsity sport this year.
Breaking news, folks. This year, boys volleyball, varsity sport.
Varsity sport.
It's awesome.
We usually we don't have like it has to go a particular way. There are certain sports that we need to add.
Yeah.
Which I'd go in particular would have been our unified sports,
Yeah.
which is with our special needs students,
Yeah.
athletes, and our other athletes competing on the same team. Those are sports that we just added right away. Volleyball was one that you go club for a few years. Sure. Let's see if there's interest, because there might be a lot of interest in 1 year, to be able to do something. Yeah. But it's typically run as a club sport. Gymnastics ran the same route a few years before we became a varsity sport, and now we actually co-op with Brookline just because of numbers, but we're able to keep it as a varsity sport. Both lacrosse programs started out as club sports. You had your traditional baseball, softball, soccer, track. Those things been in sports forever. And it was like these other sports that have been added like over the last 30 years. They typically run it as a club for a few years. There's continued interest, and then we'll be able to bring it on board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Charlie Flahive was pivotal in bringing girls hockey to Westwood. He had started as a club, and he was a major figure in the MIA, particularly for hockey.
Yep.
So same process
Yep.
back then. And it's funny, these sports are like mainstream now,
Yeah,
and we're talking about them being club,
Yeah.
no more than 20 years ago.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. You've seen a number of different. You've seen tons of championships. You've been in the AD role 12, 13 years. You've seen championships amongst a bunch of teams. Off the top of my head, you've seen at least 6 to 7 lacrosse. You've seen boys and girls hockey, and you've seen field hockey. Field hockey was an amazing one.
Yep.
And there was a lot of
unified track.
unified track. Absolutely.
We had Haley Kutzer was a state champion in
skier.
slalom ski.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's been a really, golf. I
Golf,
coached a state championship team, and I've been AD for 2.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's a lot of winning. I guess my question would be: does winning get old?
Never. Never. I'm gonna need at some point in time, someone's gonna have to ask for a larger gym, because when you come walking into the Westwood High School gym, I've seen it my whole career. So I don't think otherwise, but it has to be one of the most intimidating things to walk in when you have a wall and a half of just state championship banners, and then you have another
remarkable.
entire wall with individual TVL championships with all the numbers that are involved in there. It's absolutely phenomenal to come in and just sit there and look, and it's amazing.
Yes. It's remarkable, and I think it started 45, 50 years ago. When I sat down with Kathy Delaney Smith, and she's talking about the players, it really reminds me of a lot of the players today, the ones that were so focused on winning, that would do anything, that would outwork. The hockey program itself, having practice at 5 a.m., that's not something new. It's been going on since the 80s. We had Mike Welby on, and he really thinks that it really brings character to these kids. It makes them prepared for life, and it builds that championship mindset. And I think it's in our culture. I really think it's in our culture of competitiveness, wanting to win, being a part of something bigger than yourself. And it really has transcended, 3 years. When you look back from the 70s till present day today, there's been really no gaps in either a TVL title, a state championship, or even just, some kind of sport that is in the process of a dynasty.
Yeah.
Just a remarkable, athletic program to be a part of.
Yeah.
So with all those kind of games that have gone on, are there any games that stick out as most memorable to you? Or, I know you are impartial, because you're working, and,
Right,
and
yeah.
you're also, you don't want to show favoritism or anything like that, but obviously you enjoy winning, and you love to see Westwood win. But are there any games that stick out where that was a really cool game, that was a memorable game, if there were any?
I've seen a lot of games between the ones that I've
Yeah.
coached. When I first started, I remember sitting up in the bleachers when we were playing Weston in the Super Bowl in a pretty good snowstorm.
Yeah.
It's like I remember that, and that was, I think, probably 92
Yeah.
was probably
Yeah.
that year. I remember riding out to a boys hockey game out. We were playing, it was a team out in Western Mass for a pretty big game.
Gardner?
Gardner.
Yeah.
Yep. And I wasn't coaching at the time, but like working in Westwood, and I knew, families and some of the kids when I student taught, they were playing. So like thinking back to those early days, I was just so excited to go.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
And then when I started coaching, I mean, I have so many, events that I just remember.
Yeah.
Golf is definitely one that's really special. I'm a golfer.
Yeah.
Really special seeing some of those, matches and, and how we played, were great. I think one girls hockey game just stands out for me. They were playing Nord where my daughter she was a player.
Yep.
And it was in the state tournament. Westwood was losing 3-2 because my daughter had just scored the go-ahead goal late in the third period. And Westwood came back and won, and I had coached youth at the time for my daughter when she started playing hockey when she was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I had coached almost all the girls on the NOAA team. So it was really hard and sad to see them lose.
Tough.
But our team, Westwood came back, won, I think it was 4-3, and then went on to win a state championship. We ended up beating Wellesley in the Garden, and that was
Unbelievable.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
It was like the first trip going in there. It was amazing.
I remember that year. I was coaching JV, and that was the year that the boys lost to Oliver Ames in like a shootout
In Brockton, right?
In Brockton at ACF. And I thought both two teams could have made it to the state championship. Really tough way to lose, but you know what? I think they took that into the following year. And
we went back to the
They
Garden
gave up
again.
24 goals in 24 games onto a state championship, beating Canton twice, once in the regular season, one in the playoffs. That was a special time for hockey.
Yeah,
and
it was
remember
really
seeing
cool.
you on the ice with
yeah.
Jimmy Gormley,
Yep.
Norwood guy,
Yep.
great guy. But those are some amazing memories. For sure.
Really cool.
You've mentioned a lot about mentors that have come through in your 33 years. Have there been any student athletes that have really impacted you in the past 33 years that you can remember?
So, there's so many, and it's almost embarrassing not to like remember all their names, type thing. But I think it was my interactions that I had with the teams that I coached are like the memorable things for me.
For sure.
If you come in my office, I have Germano, who did the transcript.
Eddie Germano.
Eddie Germano,
Yeah.
right. I have one from
Cartoons.
Matt Siebert was the captain that year on our golf team that we went undefeated. And I always to think back to those years, like Matt, and then there was like the subsequent groups after that I just had such a great relationship with the players that I play golf with them now.
Yeah.
It's like a member over at Norfolk. There's members over at Norfolk. They come up. I get a chance to see them. It's just really cool to, interact with them now at a much different stage in their life where they're having kids, and all that. So that's just a lot of fun. The Hall of Fame dinners over the last few years, where they're all student athletes that I knew when they were 12 years old. And now I see them coming back and they are being inducted into the Westwood High Hall of Fame. It's so cool to be able to see that and remember them when they were out there playing, and remember those things. It's just really neat.
For sure. We had a guy like Mark Zarther on a couple weeks ago. He's now the chief strategy officer of the Florida Panthers. And there's a lot of kids who've come through that are in these amazing leadership positions. Do you see these kids, when they were at that age, did you see the leadership qualities in them then? What was your experience when you see kids who were, super successful at the top of their careers? Were there attributes that stuck out to you when you were involved with them?
It's interesting. I got to go a roundabout way of answering your question. Working at the middle school and you see kids in the hardest stage of their life as 11, 12, 13, maybe 14 years old of trying to figure out who they are. It's easy to project their, this kid is going to absolutely succeed. That kid doesn't stand a chance, But then you go to graduation and you see them 4 years later in their life and it's like, they're going to make it. And that's the really cool. So I am never surprised when I see somebody that is at the top of their game. Not surprised that Mark Zartha would be doing
Not
that.
one bit.
And not that I saw anything at him at that point, but just knowing, they're transitioning through their life and that they're having all these opportunities to be able to succeed. I just think that that's just really cool to see. But there have been, you see kids, develop early, certain skills, and then you're not surprised that they end up, that they're the captain of the basketball team or captain of the softball team.
For sure.
Not surprised because you could see those things in their life that only were going to develop even more.
How important do you think team sports is for that development for high school students and middle school students in general?
Invaluable. I would say one of the pillars of the MIA, which it took me quite a few years to really accept it, is educational athletics. You're going to learn the most when you're failing. And it's going to be when you're at your lowest, that's when you're going to be able to really grow the most. And it's just a hard pill to swallow, because, our girls lacrosse team, humongous success all the time. We're eventually, which we did last year, we're going to lose one league game for the first time in 20 something years. It's going to happen. But it's like, well, how are you going to respond to that? That's the key. It's like, how are they being set up so that when they experience, failure, how do we then give them the tools to then succeed? And it's a process that is a struggle to go through, and it's hard, but it's also really important. Because I've been to different athletic director things when people are talking about who they're looking to hire, and when they prioritize high school athletes or college athletes because they know that they're going to have some form of resiliency, I think it's going to be really important. So,
I want to bring up COVID real quick. I know it's a topic everyone wants to just put behind us, but I think it did open our eyes up to a few things. One being mental health. It really took a toll on mental health. Just not being able to be out in front with your friends and to feel like you're part of something that is providing value in your life. Some of these things that really help build your self-esteem. Is it ever more apparent now how important athletics is for these kids and their mental health and being a part of these teams?
I think it's a great outlet.
Yeah.
But I think it has to be in perspective.
Yes.
I think is the key, because we all experienced to some degree isolation, loneliness, and missed the camaraderie. And, the kids that went through a significant formative years of their life missed those things. I just know that as athletic directors, we continue to meet during COVID to be like, when we return, how do we make it work? How do these things happen? How can we have it where we can be at games and be able to have it when we have to space by 6 feet or we're supposed to be wearing masks? And, but I think that, ultimately your family and the support that your family is able to provide helps benefit when they're out being active and playing on a team. I think that it's really key to have it where, it's not the end of the world. You're going to bounce back from it. Wins and losses happen. It's about your preparation. What are you putting into it? And then have realistic expectations, I think is going to be key.
And last question I want to ask before we jump into the fall sports, the exciting start so far in the fall. We've covered a bunch of games, and one thing that has been something that we've noticed is just dominant athletes, particularly Lillian Gillisarian, Caroline Nozzolillo, Bridget Mulkeen. In my opinion, they are arguably the best player at their sport in the state. I would also argue, they might be the best player to ever come through the high school in that sport. Have you ever seen 3 athletes that dominant in the same class? And what can you say about, each of the 3, and how special they are to each of their respective sports?
I mean, it's different, I want to say decades.
Yeah.
It's like you go back to the Holden twins, who win state championships in golf and hockey. Yeah. It's like, just off the top of my head, like Laura McCool, Kristen Gelman, the Rich girls, the Frank girls, in lacrosse. I mean, there's just segments in time where we've just had like the highest caliber of athlete playing at our school, which, you know, what games saw is just like what athletes were just a lot of fun to watch because of just what they did, you know, how they could elevate their game and then elevate everybody else's game. The three that you mentioned now, you know, it's like watching Bridget pitch. I mean, it's awesome. You know, it's so cool. And to go out and see Lily, you know, out on the golf course, I don't get a chance to do it that often. But, you know, when I get a chance to go out there and just watch her play, you know, she's just so good. You know, and Caroline, just another one of our, you know, lengthy list of lacrosse players that they just have something else. You know, there's that extra little thing that they have that when they have the ball, you're just waiting because something exciting is going to happen.
I've noticed, I haven't seen Lillian play, but Bridget and Caroline, they have that leadership qualities, and I'm sure Lillian has it too, where like Bridget was diving for balls. She's got blood coming out of her arm from a first inning diving ball. Caroline's going to the physical areas, taking wax off the face to score goals or to pass it to, you know, dish it over to CC Thurman for, you know, a goal. They have that leadership that is just, it's not even just great leadership, it's the standard of leadership. You know, is that something you've noticed in like these dominant athletes, is they have that extra, they have it, you know what it,
oh, without a doubt. You know, and it's, you can see it see it on the players when someone is it. You know, they just kind of, they stand
like Don
out.
Varner, he had it, like you just knew he was going to do something special.
Yeah, you know, it's, you know, they have that where they're looking at what does it take to win. You know, we can always think of like the different pro athletes and kind of, you know, what they talk about, or some of the college athletes and stuff like that, and you know, they're trying to emulate, you know, kind of what they see, but also what they're developing in themselves is, you know, a resilience of, you know, the want to win and the refuse to lose. You know, when you're diving for certain things, like I think, you know, Ava Connaughton, when she scored the, you know, the game-winning goal, you know, the Bobby Orr, it's like the play that she made to intercept the ball was the play. You know, because like everybody, I think everybody on earth was shocked to see her intercept that ball. And then she does the diving thing. And then all of a sudden it's like the Bobby Orr. But it was like, but did you see the interception? You know,
to catch that in the air. Like I think the goalie was trying to throw it and whiffed a little bit. She catches it in the air, has the wherewithal to take the right angle to the net. Has the awareness to know where, you know, the other bodies are coming in to try and knock that ball out. She dives, puts it in the net. Like, was it under 10 seconds left?
It had to have been.
Unbelievable. That probably one of the more memorable state championship games I've ever seen.
I think I was still angry about how they didn't call a cross check in the back that happened, you know, 10, 15 seconds earlier.
You know, it was a little home cook in there, you know. But you know what, to do that in Franklin versus Franklin, what a memory. And the way it went down, like that will go down in history as one of the more memorable games. And I think that following season, I think that might have been the most dominant lacrosse team in the state championship. They won 17-18 to like 2. I think Wellesley scored the first goal. No, and they scored the first one. And we're like, oh boy, we're gonna have our hands full. And then Westwood scored like 12-13 unanswered.
That team was so much fun to watch.
They were,
you know, and because that's what I talking with Margot, and you know, we just said all gas, no brake. It's like that's how we're gonna go about doing this. And it's like teams, you're either going to have to put up, or we're just going to run you over. You know, so.
Well, those are some great
fun
memories. And, you know, definitely want to get into fall sports, and also, you know, just kind of what's the year outlook look like for Westwood sports? You already talked about volleyball becoming a varsity program. You know, in terms of the season already being kicked off, we have some great teams off to some great starts, you know, that are really vying for a TVL championship. You know, who are some of those teams that we should keep an eye on? And are there players that we might not be aware of that we should keep an eye on as well?
Like girls volleyball is off to a tremendous start. They beat Dedham last night 3-0. They beat Hopkinton last Friday 3-1. You know, so they're coming out and they're just playing really, really well. They're really excited, you know, to be able to, you know, get out there and compete. So they're a lot of fun and off to a great start. Our golf team is off to a tremendous start. We lost to Zavarian, I think might be our only loss so far. And Zavarian, I think as a team, had 3 players shoot under par, you know, that day, because you know, they're doing really well. But our team is playing some
I
great
like our
golf,
chances at Norfolk. I
I-
think that was at Brook Meadow. So,
Yes.
good luck playing 4.
Exactly.
If take the driver out on 4, boys.
So there'll be a lot of fun. Football took it on the chin.
Yeah.
This past one, we're going to start our continue on non-league against Bellingham this Friday for Westwood Day.
Yeah.
And I think talking with Coach Pendel seems very positive and excited about the chances for our team. So I think they'll do really well. Field Hockey's off to a great start as well. I think our only loss so far is to Norwood.
Yeah.
So they're our team's doing well. We had a 2-2 tie last night against Dedham, and we were down 2-0, and we came back in the fourth to tie that one up. So I think that they're also going to have a really good run. Our cross country teams open up tomorrow.
Nice.
And I think that they'll do well.
Yep.
So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
As far as what we have going on.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, we talked to Tony, Mari, and Henrik Laguerre's cross country, and very excited about that season. They talked us through. We didn't know much about the sport.
Sure.
And they're telling us about even the home route.
Yeah.
Going up. They talked about some hill right around the middle school. That's a tough.
Right at the
incline.
corner of the field. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But they mentioned they had coached some great coaches. One being the coach for. The boys,
Gentian and Ed Lyons.
And they were mentioning them. So you've had coaches that have been around the program for a while. There's also new coaches that have come in. Who are some of the new coaches for fall teams that we might not be aware of that we should put on our radar?
So Justine Whalen is our new varsity volleyball coach.
Okay.
Some previous students know as Justine Collier.
Okay.
She was with the program as a JV coach, stepped back for a couple of years, and came back as our varsity coach this year. Awesome. We also have a new chair coach, Gabby Sink, so that she's around. So that's really nice having her there. But other than that, we have a lot of returning coaches that are back, and right now in the fall, those two. Also, I didn't mention our soccer teams.
Yeah.
Our soccer teams are off to really good starts as well. So that they're exciting to watch.
They are. We talked to the kids too in the beginning of the season, and they want it. This is so important to them, winning the TVL and the memories they have with their teammates. It's and to see it unfold on the field is, I think, one of the cooler experiences. And soccer boys. We did the boys game the other day. A great tie versus a always tough Hopkinton team.
Yep. Yep.
Girls volleyball team, a huge win the other night versus Hopkinton, who's the reigning TVL champ.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Keeping the town involved in some of these stories, that are going on is, definitely want to get them behind our teams, our players. There's some really good teams that are making some cases for TVL titles this year.
Yep.
I asked, previous guests, who are some shout outs you want to give to people that, we mentioned Martha, but who are others that, are really helpful, with, on a day-to-day basis, with just helping out with getting, the fields, the games, everything just ready for play.
So depending on the season, I have different needs. And I think this is, a key for an athletic director is to be able to just have the ability to be able to relate to so many different people.
For sure.
I mean, our custodian staff, first of all, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Everything that they do all year long. It's like helping out at the volleyball, getting things set up, cleaning up, having building access. Without them, our teams wouldn't be as successful as they are, because they just provide the time for us to use the building in off hours to come in and practice, and play and compete. So, they're great. And same thing with our grounds guys.
Yeah.
The grounds guys and DPW, because they, have different roles on which fields that they go about taking care of. But, if I need a new net put on, for soccer or field hockey, or, there's something going on with the turf, just reaching out to whoever is responsible and being able to get those things fixed so that our fields are ready to go. I think Paul Lilla, in my world is invaluable. What he provides for our student athletes, the medical coverage, his knowledge, his caring, his skill in being able to deal with so many different student athletes and help them through the process of dealing with an adverse condition, injury, or something like that, and being able to get them hopefully back on the field of play, just what he brings is tremendous. And then, Amy Davenport and the administrative team, again, everyone has their part in how the whole thing works. And, and I think that one of the successful things in Westwood is that everybody fulfills their role. I mean, even Westwood Media, right? Like coming out, and this is even during COVID time, of being able to come out, record games, and post them. It's like keeping people informed with what's going on, keeping the excitement there. Every little piece absolutely has its place to the success of what goes on. So, I mean, there's so many people to thank.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like I'm gonna have to.
I'm glad you did, because I mean, for example, like during the baseball season, softball season, it's always a lot of rain accumulation. There's a lot of mud, and the work that is done by facilities to get these fields ready, and
amazing.
Even graduation to get everything ready, and it takes a village, and there's people who are behind the scenes doing this that deserve a shout out. So it's appreciate you shouting out. All these people who do a fantastic job supporting our school, supporting our athletics in the town.
Yeah, I think probably the most important is going to be just the town of Westwood.
Yeah.
When I was interviewing for this job, and the question was, why do I want to be the Westwood athletic director? And I always answered like philosophically when I was doing my practices. And this is usually the first question I'll ask potential coaches. Why do you want to coach in Westwood? Mm-hmm. And now it would be really easy for me to answer the question. Have you seen our facilities?
Yeah.
Have you seen the support that our town provides?
Yeah.
We have 2 turf fields with lights.
Yes.
We have 2 softball, 2 baseball fields on the same grounds.
Yes.
Middle school and high school were connected. We have more fields up at the an upper and lower field up at Thurston Middle School. We put another field hockey field up there. We're a small college campus.
It is.
And it's like, again, the new school of the Pine Hill, the town now has another full-size basketball court.
Yeah.
It's without the support of the town making decisions to support these things, it would be very hard for us to be successful in what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned a good point about like the fields with the lights on them. Evan and I had a really cool opportunity to cover the girls softball TVL clinching game at Morrison.
Yep.
That's an amazing spot for a softball game. Will we see more games there in the future, or is that going to be just more designated for like the senior night game?
It's just been the senior night game, just to make that more of a special time.
Yeah.
But I am open pretty much to almost anything.
Because I think a lot of parents after that were like, "This was amazing,"
I wish it was better seating. Better viewing.
I kind of like it though. You're on the
right there.
If you're the opposing team,
it's like you're at Fenway Park.
It is. Well, it's a mix between Fenway Park and the old Garden, where like the old Garden, you can basically you're right over the bench.
Yep.
But what a scene. Yep. Trains coming by every 20 minutes.
Yep.
But like that game on that field, certainly one of the more memorable games of the season, and it was such a really unique spot to watch them play. So
it's funny. I'll start thinking about all these different memorable times, right? And I try and take time like at any of the games that we have, and if I can take a step back and just take in the experience for a minute, mm-hmm. It's so cool. It's like a little slice of Americana. Like I'll do it, Friday night. Look at just the number of people that are there for the game, and then the fireworks will be going off. But like with the softball game, you had a little league game going on behind you.
Yeah.
So it's like you're sitting there and we have our game
small town feel.
Yeah. And to me, those are the things that are priceless, because they're just, we take them for granted until you stop and think like, wow, like this is really cool. We have 2 different games going on under lights at the same venue, a high school and a little league game. And it's just really cool to be able to take it in. It's like, those are I'll remember those things the most, because I love just going by and seeing games when they're being played.
Yeah.
And like for Westwood, it's just a lot of pride that I take in seeing our teams out there doing those things. It's great.
One thing I wanted to mention to you too is this upcoming season, Medfield is now part of the TVL Small. Dedham is part of the TVL Large. How does that kind of get decided? I'd imagine it's during the AD meetings. And will there be any changes you think in the foreseeable future? Or is this something that's kind of going to be, a change and not much expected for the next year or two?
This changes for 2 years.
2 years.
So every 2 years we go off of enrollment.
Okay.
So we go large and small.
Yeah.
And then wherever the line is, top 6 are large, other 6 are small.
Yeah.
So this year, decline enrollment in Medfield, little increase in Dedham, changed the numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
We've been discussing league, kind of how it's set up now over the last few years because of some of the drop in enrollments where schools can't offer as many levels, so that when you're looking at, if you can run 3 levels of soccer, and some schools can only run 2, some are only running 1. So that's a bunch of games that you're not able to fulfill. And, how do we go about dealing with situations like that?
Yeah.
One of the, we have some of our sports, it is large and small. We have our own large and small champions. They exist as completely separate leagues. And then we'll have it where girls hockey, for instance, not as many schools have it. We run as one league. So that, those are 2 distinct differences that we have based on sports that are offered. And we're going to have a discussion about boys hockey because of low enrollments in schools. They might not be able to sustain their own program.
Yeah.
We'll have to go to more co-ops
Yeah.
where 2 schools join together. And what will that do to our league? What's the impact? And how's that going to look?
Got ones that are becoming state champions. Dover, Weston coming off a state. They were a heck of a team.
Yes.
And there's, teams like Millis that don't have hockey.
Yep.
But there are surprising teams like Norton's. They're a good team.
They're hanging on.
They're
Yep.
hanging on. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's across the 3 different seasons
Yeah.
as far as kind of, what it looks like. So
Yeah.
those, we're trying to stay away from let's create the league by sport, only because like management wise,
Yeah.
that would be hard to do. But these are all factors that we discuss all the time, which then some of the things, depending on our league bylaws, principals need to, vote on and approve. And there are certain things that athletic directors can vote on and approve. But
So there's checks and balances
Yes.
that go through these processes. That's good. Good to know.
yeah,
But this is all great, Coach. I appreciate
I'm
you,
so
you
glad
coming
I
in.
came. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
definitely want to do more of these.
Yeah.
Especially with the excitement of the season.
Yeah.
We barely hit the tip of the iceberg for this year.
Oh yeah.
And already had some great games we've done, and looking forward to games to come. We have the live game coming this Friday, Bellingham. It's going to be unprecedented coverage. Tom Lydon and myself will be on the call. And we have some really special things in store, so
Awesome.
looking forward to that.
Can't
But
wait.
Thank you so much for coming on. Wish the best of luck this year in
Thank
the
you.
upcoming season.
Thank you very
Looking
much.
forward to being on the sideline,
Yeah.
and we'll be celebrating. We're definitely homers when it comes to the call, but that's what it's all about.
As am I. As am I. Yep.
But Coach, thank you again so much.
Awesome. Yep.
And thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one.